And obviously, Big Tobacco is doing all they can. They've been paying black law enforcement executives to say that, if this happens, then black people who with cigarettes are going to be targeted. That's a lie. And different things along those lines. They've had their meetings. They've been trying to get Congressional Black Caucus members to pull back on their support for banning menthol cigarettes, and also paying off other civil rights organizations as well to accept their position.
Yes, and so that's why it's important for us. All of public health was there today. We were so grateful, so humbled, so proud. The Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, the American Heart Association, American Lung Association, American Cancer Society, the Action Network, amongst other African American and people of color organizations were there to say, we want our government to protect Black lives. And so the majority of the people there weren't even African American, which was wonderful, because it was like, we are our brother's keeper, and that this injustice of leaving these products on the market for these decades has to stop. So we see the industry pulling out all the stops, and so we are pulling out all the stops that we have the power to do. And in conjunction with today, the American Conference of Mayors was meeting in D.C. They had their own press conference with some of the leadership of Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, and other African American mayors standing up saying, we will not let the pernicious racist targeting of the tobacco industry be flipped and used against us now when we're trying to protect our people and to get these products off of the U.S. market, as Canada has done, as the European Union has done, as Ethiopia has done. And so when we talk about passing a law, Roland, it's not a one and done. This is the beginning. And so we need services for our people. We're taking off one of the most addictive substances on the face of the earth, which is nicotine, and our people need services. And so that's part of, we attended Biden's moonshot. He had a meeting at the White House June 1st of last year about cessation, how to help people to stop smoking. So we're talking about racism. We're talking about the different things, how this shows up in our community and how it needs to be addressed in our community to save Black lives. And so I'm looking at the footage you have, and it just was a glorious day. We came out in the cold. I'm a Californian, and we came out and we showed up, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful, positive experience to show this country and the rest of the world that we're here. We're not going anywhere. I started this when we used to do the protests. I'd have my Kaiser card. Now I have my Medicare card rolling. But I'm still here, and I still will continue until this is done, until my people are not being persistently and racistly targeted by the tobacco industry.
Questions from panel law. You first.
So obviously, I think that this is clearly a money and politics moment. So many of these civil rights groups are completely silent on something they shouldn't be completely silent on. What is your guess as to what the White House is going to do? Do you have any prediction? My colleague, Dr. Valerie Yerger, wrote a research paper almost 20 years ago, Smoking with the Enemy, that documented from the tobacco industry's own documents that have been released because of litigation, how they systematically went after us as Black people. And that has changed. So we have Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated who got out front of this, and they've had 2 resolutions. We have the National Medical Association, our Black doctors. We have the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, who passed a resolution in 2016. So in spite of the tobacco industry interference, there are many important and powerful leadership groups, the National Council of Negro Women with my sister Siobhan in D.C., they've come out. So there are our groups, our leadership groups are in support of this. And they are the groups that actually have a real constituency in terms of voting. The NAACP, the National Council for Negro Women, when they speak to their constituents, they listen, they are respected. Delta Sigma Theta, they are respected. And I think that, as we approach this election year, that the Biden-Harris administration, and we had we had a meeting with them on Zoom, where we could see them and they could see us, and they can see that the people who are voting, who are constituents, are in support of taking this deadly product off the market that kills more Black people than everything else combined, and that it's not magic. There needs to be some other things that go with it, and we're here to make sure that those other things that go with it, the services, our attorney generals came out with a letter yesterday or this week that
the enforcement that we're talking about, it's not about the individual. It's not about a brother on the corner smoking a cigarette and the police are going to come up and say, is that a menthol? This is about the head of the snake. This is about the tobacco industry, and that these products will no longer be available in our country to be smuggled, to be black marketed. So, and the services that we need with that as well.
Jonquel?
Yes, thank you so much for being here. And I am a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I'm so proud that we have come out with a resolution and have been very active on this specific issue. What I wanted to say is that there are some reports out there that the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration has not moved forward with pushing this ban through with the fear of losing the black vote during this election cycle. What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts are just what I said, is that we had a call with the White House. So on that call was President Derek Johnson from the NAACP, Siobhan from the National Council of Negro Women. There were people on the call who really do have constituents who listen and who are guided by the organizations that they're members of, Delta Sigma Theta. And I think that the Biden-Harris administration, they really could see that this is not something that the industry, the tobacco industry, is just going to manipulate and have a showing and prey upon our gut feelings of trauma that we've had and experienced in this country as Black people at the hands of police brutality. That's not going to be the trade-off to save the 45,000 Black folks who die every year from this, and that we're not going to allow them to use this as an excuse, as a smokescreen to deal with things that we need to grapple with in this country and that we are grappling with. But in the meantime, we have to grapple with the biggest wolf, the biggest killer, the biggest targeter of Black men, which is Newport cigarettes and Cool cigarettes. Those are the biggest targeters and killers of Black men. It's not the police departments.
Greg? Greg, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Roland. And thank you, Sister McGruder. This might not be, Jonquel asked, I think, the salient question in terms of the politics of it. So I want to ask a question that may not be relevant, and I don't know, but we know yesterday Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo was argued at the Supreme Court. We know the right wing is trying to kick the teeth out of the administrative state. Yesterday, they were talking about this Chevron doctrine. They want to say that courts, not administrative agencies, will have should have the power to interpret statutes. Now, I know that these regs that FDA wants to put forth are pursuant to federal legislation. Are you worried at all that these tobacco companies could come back and say that the courts should decide whether or not menthol and all of the other flavors that have already been banned should be banned or not, and that maybe all of them could be brought back? Or is that something we shouldn't? I mean, obviously, it's nothing we should worry about right now. We should
definitely be concerned about that, because what the tactics of the industry are delay. So anything that they can do to delay the righteous cause that we're fighting, they do. And so we saw in California, we passed a state law to take these products off the market. The tobacco industry collected signatures. They put a referendum on the ballot. We fought the referendum. And 60% of Californians said we want these products off the market. What do? They have a lawsuit. So we anticipate that most likely they will have a lawsuit. And this is, Roland, where you're so important in this equation, is that our people need to wake up and they need to reject these products. Even if you're a menthol smoker, my brother's a menthol smoker, my oldest brother. I have, people, some of my best friends are menthol smokers, so I know the struggle. But whatever you do you want that to pass down to the next generation of Black children, to the next generation of young people? And so this is the norm, the cultural norm that the tobacco industry has created. This is part of what we're fighting. And so this is not going to be something that's going to just happen overnight. It's a process. And we need to begin that process. And so we do anticipate that there will be lawsuits, that they'll do everything that they can, because they do not want to let their hooks out of our community. They do not want to let the 45,000 Black people who would still be alive, people like myself who are mothers, who are fathers, who are grandparents, who are the stability of our families, the fabric of our communities. Those are the people who die prematurely from tobacco-induced diseases. Those are the people that we're protecting, but equally we're saying not another generation. So whether or not, and we're working with services, the CDC is rolling out a menthol campaign. Health departments all over the country are getting on board. So it's a process, but our people need to wake up that this is a political issue as much as it is a health issue, and they need to reject these products. And smokers, you're paying tobacco taxes, you're paying for services. So you need to demand that you have cessation, that you have these products that can help you to get off of nicotine. You have a right to those products, and we're fighting equally for that as well.
All right, then. Carol, we appreciate it. Keep up the fight.
I appreciate you, Roland.
All right, thanks a bunch. All right, folks, we come back. Republicans, conservatives constantly attacking DEI. Latest, it's always something CRT, affirmative action, quotas, you name it, anything that advances black folks, they are against. Well, Black conservative joins us next who say they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support us in what we do. Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. So you're checking money, order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Farquhar, executive producer of Proud Family.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Past several months, you've seen a lot of white conservatives constantly attacking DEI. That's now their new boogeyman. Bill Ackman, this dude right here, a billionaire, he was pissed off with the president of Harvard University, and he called her, said all kinds of different things about her, called her an affirmative action hire. Well, he's been attacking DEI. You also have Elon Musk doing the exact same thing. You've had folks like Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, out there correcting them and challenging them on these different things. And it now is the newest thing for the right. So all you hear, DEI in Florida, they now have banned all DEI programs at state universities, saying, I don't care if you get state or federal funding, you can't use DEI in any way whatsoever. Then, of course, you have the same thing happening in Texas. And so the right is doing all they can. They've been attacking Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, saying that, they're focused on woke policies. And so understand, woke DEI, that's their new targets. And, of course, they use Dr. King's federal holiday birthday to say, if Dr. King was alive, he would be against these things. That's what actually Bill Ackman said. And you know damn well Bill Ackman ain't read a damn book or even more than one speech. He probably even heard one speech by Dr. King, but all of a sudden, he wants to consider himself an expert on Dr. King. They always try to cite Dr. King's 1963 I Have a Dream speech, and they always want to quote the content of character, but they ain't got a damn thing to say about what's at the top of that speech, because that's the real stuff they don't want to address. Joining me now is Dr. Chris Metzler. He's president, CEO, Metzler Enterprises. Chris is conservative, and he's made it perfectly clear they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Chris, glad to have you back on the show. And I've said this before, this is the new boogeyman for them. So it's CRT, it's quotas, it's affirmative action. They want to attack anything that confronts the vestiges of racism in this country.
Well, that's correct. But here's the thing. They also want to tout diversity. They also want to say such and such is the first black Republican or conservative to be X, Y, and Z. They're talking about that right now with the governor, the lieutenant governor.
Looks like Chris. You froze. Hey, Chris, you froze there. You were saying the lieutenant governor of
North Carolina, who they have running for governor, they want to tout him as the first black Republican who is successful. Here's the problem with them. The problem with them is you can be diverse so long as you're like them. And that's the difficulty. They're talking about diversity of thought, but whose thought? Diversity of their thought. And the Martin Luther King stuff, now they're trying to redefine what Dr. King said. And the content of character, what the heck does that have to do with employment? Last time I checked, content of character is not an essential function of any job.
Well, and the thing that trips me out with their attacks is they're trying to say, with DEI, you're now hiring incompetent people, who are not qualified. No, what you're doing is you're simply saying to these white folks who are hiring, guess what? Don't just keep hiring white folks. You need to go out and find black candidates, Hispanic candidates, Asian American, Native American, and stop hiring the same old, same old. That's what the real deal is. They're angry that their white boys and white girls can't get the hookup on jobs. They now got to compete.
Well, and if affirmative action has brought all of these unqualified black folks into the workplace, why is it that we do not have more black CEOs? Why is that? And so this whole discussion is disingenuous. And Ackman, in his whole attack on Dr. Gay, first of all, she never committed plagiarism. There were some citation errors she needed to address. And as it relates to his own wife, who was a professor at MIT, she created plagiarism when she was at MIT. So don't give me that crap. They're going back and forth with this nonsense, attacking it, and it's just simply not genuine. Now they're trying to redefine Dr. King's legacy. Charlie Kirk has already said that, in fact, King was not the great civil rights leader. He was a socialist and a communist. And so there is an attempt at this point to redefine his legacy, and that's not going to fly.
I was looking at this one clip. Congressman Dean Phillips, who thinks he's running against Biden, which is a joke. He's removed DEI from his website. And it's amazing how that happened after Bill Ackman gave $1 million to a super PAC supporting his campaign. And he's trying to say, oh, no one can buy me. Dude, stop it. Ackman told you want my money, you got to remove DEI from your website.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly right. Running against Biden doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning, but it's taking the money. And that's the bottom line.
Questions from the panel. Greg, you're first.
Thank you, Roland. Let me make sure I'm on mute. Okay, I'm good. Thank you, Roland, and good to see you, Chris.
Same here.
Yeah, looking at this, I don't want to call him a cockroach, so I won't. Stephen Miller and America First. I think they raised $4 million the first year they were in existence, 21. They raised $44 million in 22 and so forth. They got the EEOC investigating NASCAR. They want them to investigate Lyft and Dick's Sporting Goods on abortion policy, travel policy. Any thoughts on the danger presented by this white nationalist, who, as we are on this show, is recruiting lawyers through and in conjunction with the Heritage Foundation to stack up for a second Trump administration? Where does Stephen Miller and America First, these lawyers, fit in this?
Well, here's the biggest danger. If Trump is back in the White House, Stephen Miller is the Attorney General. That's the biggest danger. And so we're talking about this. Don't think that Stephen is doing this because he has nothing else to do. Stephen Miller will be the Attorney General. He's not going to be White House counsel. He's going to be the Attorney General. And so be prepared for that.
Thank you.
Well, and absolutely, that's exactly what they want. Lauren, next.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I mean, don't you think that almost none of this is new? I mean, it seems like this entire conversation is quite old, actually. I mean, whether it's Chris Rufo or Charles Murray or whoever it is that wants to show up and pretend that they're superior, comes up with that thesis and then tries to build some public policy around it. I mean, isn't this just the old racism superiority talk that we've heard since the beginning of time?
Well, it is the old one, except for the fact that, you know, what we are doing, a number of us in the DEI work is we are responding. We are on the defense. They have a strategy that is embedded. We are responding, we are reacting, we're doing all of these kinds of things. Traditional civil rights organizations are not in this fight as they need to be in this fight. And as a result of that, every time something comes out, we go, oh, this, and this, but they have a strategic approach. We have a reactionary approach.
Well, and the thing is, Chris, even though, first of all, even though it's old, but it's also new because what they're angry about, they do not like the advancement that African Americans have made, Latinos have made, and so they are using the affirmative action ruling by the Supreme Court to target companies, affinity groups, to target fellowships, to target venture capitalists. And so they want to, this is their entire goal. This is the attack on DEI. They want to dismantle everything that has been put in place to create opportunities for upward mobility for Black people and others. That is their aim because they believe white people are losing out. Chris, your feed is frozen. Let me know when you get Chris back. I'm gonna go to let me know when Chris is back. Jonquel, that really is the deal. They are specifically targeting law firms. A week after the Supreme Court ruling, attorney generals sent letters. Senator Tom Cotton sent letters to law firms saying, oh, your programs are now out of compliance or unconstitutional. And the ruling didn't have a damn thing to do with their programs.
You're exactly right. I mean, it's an attempt to essentially dismantle everything. Going back to when I was growing up, I was in the Upward Bound program. I did the Inroads program. Those are programs for minorities and for Blacks that prepare them for college and prepare them for the workplace. And the eradication of these DEI programs from our institutions, although it's been, in my understanding, a select 5 states at this juncture, it really threatens the future for African Americans and other minorities as well, moving forward with our ability to get into colleges that are predominantly white institutions, our ability to, for upward mobility in corporations, in government, and all of these different opportunities that are out here. And it's really threatening the future of everyone here. And this is something that I brought up last week about even when affirmative action was dismantled. And so it's an attack. And I believe I said it last week that we need to mobilize and get to work on this and sending these letters to law firms. I mean, one thing about lawyers is that we know the law and we're going to research it. I'm not sure what the tactic is behind that, sending it to law firms that they're out of compliance. No.
I can tell you what the tactic is. We got Chris back. But what they want to do is they want to scare these firms to say, hey, change it or we're going to sue you. And they're going to and actually some law firms, Chris, have already done that. Corporations are doing that. We're seeing a lot of these companies cut back on DEI initiatives. Now, we knew that was going to take place in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. But what they're doing is they're using the affirmative action ruling to scare corporate America to say, y'all better get rid of all these programs or we're coming after you, and they're going to sick Ed Blum. You've got Stephen Miller's law firm trying to tell people, oh, if you think that you've lost the job due to DEI, let us know. They want to go after everyone.
Yeah, and here's the thing, though. The affirmative action case has nothing to do with employment at all. It has nothing to do with employment. But that's exactly what they're using. And employers are saying, oh, we're scared. As a matter of fact, they still have on the OFCCP regulations, there are still affirmative action requirements. Keep in mind, affirmative action is not just about Black people, veterans and women as well. So let's not get confused.
Yep, absolutely. And, Greg, there were a lot of folks who were saying, with the affirmative action ruling, okay, this is going to be a boon for HBCUs. Hello, they are also targeting HBCUs. What people don't understand is your largest HBCUs are public institutions in red states. So you're talking about North Carolina has more HBCUs. Guess what? They're state schools, Mississippi, Florida, Texas. So we see what's going on. So people need to understand that they think that these are going to be sort of, escape areas from these white supremacists. No, they're going to target the HBCUs. Florida got rid of African American Studies program, even teaching sociology.
That's exactly right. And as you say, I mean, almost all of the HBCUs are behind the Cotton Curtain. They're in the South. And the private institutions aren't safe either because, of course, if you get federal money through grants, through federal financial aid, then that's their point of entry there. Again, I mean, this punk Stephen Miller and this America First is what you said, whether it be Ed Blum, whether it be these billionaires pumping money into them. And remember, you covered this extensively, and you had this conversation ongoing about the Black farmers. It was Miller and those punks at America First that messed up the $4 billion to the Black farmers. It was them that went after the restaurant restoration funds during COVID, and it wasn't that other businesses couldn't apply, but they were supposed to process those minority-owned restaurants first. This is all of their plan. And Chris, as you say, Chris, the SFFA wasn't on its face about affirmative action, but really that is the point of entry to do. And I encourage them in this in one regard, because they're dying and they're fighting for the last dying gasp of their white ethno-state. That is what they're doing. But you can't kill us all, and your babies ain't going to keep coming out in enough numbers to make anything. So they have gotten so desperate that they dropped all pretense of any rule of law, and it's going to come down to this. It's going to come down to whether or not we are going to come together and fight these racists. And there's going to be nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, because they have dropped all pretenses at this point.
Yeah, and when you're looking at HBCUs, remember the 1890s, which are all land-grant institutions. And so there is that as well.
That's right. That's right.
There you go. Chris Metzler, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Folks, when we come back, President Joe Biden talks about broadband expansion in North Carolina, but it also talks about how the economy is improving for everyone, including African Americans. We'll show you what he had to say next on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Stud Network.
Live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3 only on the Black Star Network.
We just have one of the oldest cultures that's desperately needed for mutual salvation. That's the consciousness. We have the keys in our roots to save mankind. We get to see the condition of other countries, other oceans, other cultures. And if we believe in God, a lot of us do, He's telling us if you don't get rid of that stuff that makes somebody superior or inferior and work together for the mutual salvation, everybody's gone.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder.
Right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
President Biden stopped in Raleigh, North Carolina today to announce a new investment from the American Rescue Plan's Capital Projects Fund. $82 million in new investments will connect an additional 16,000 North Carolinians to high-speed internet as part of the Biden-Harris administration's Investing in America agenda. Overall, some $3 billion has been invested in North Carolina to lower costs for families and connect everyone in the state to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. Now, I know somebody watching right now might be saying, okay, I don't understand what the big deal is, but people don't realize how many folks literally who live in rural America do not have access to high-speed internet. And so we are requiring folks to apply for jobs, to check on medical status, all these sorts of things through the internet, but they have unreliable internet. Some places in North Carolina, I was talking to one guy, they actually rely on Elon Musk's Starlink to be able to access the internet. Some folks like, man, we don't want to do that at all. And so here's Biden talking today in North Carolina.
Bringing opportunity and hope to people and communities across this country. Let me give you one example of bringing high-speed internet to every person in America. Nearly a century ago, Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Rural Electrification Act, bringing electricity to every home and farm in America because it was in cities, but it wasn't in a lot of rural areas. Because electricity had become an essential part of modern life. So he wanted sure everyone had access to it. He was determined that no American should be left behind, no matter where they lived, whether in a big city or a rural area. Well, I tell you what, I made the same determination about our time, affordable, high-speed internet. It really is critical. It's just as essential today as electricity was a century ago. Who remembers, during the pandemic when schools were shut down and the Sergeant First Class mentioned it, kids weren't able to attend school, so they go online. How many of you spent time in McDonald's parking lots tapping into their internet so you could do the homework with your kid? Look, think of all the workers who need internet to do their jobs when they're working from home. So many are working from home, have to work. Small businesses need internet to reach more customers here at home and literally around the world. And our seniors are needed in connection with their doctors through telemedicine because they can't make it to the doctors in person. High-speed internet isn't a luxury anymore. It's an absolute necessity. It's an absolute, no, it really is. And yet, when I became president, around 24 million Americans didn't have access to affordable high-speed internet. And for millions more, their internet connection was limited or unreliable. That's why, as soon as I came into office, I took action with what we call the American Rescue Plan. And it included more than $25 billion to invest in affordable internet, high-speed internet all across America.
While speaking, Biden also talked about the improvements to the economy.
Employment has been below 4% for the longest stretch in American history in the last 50 years. And here in North Carolina, unemployment is even lower. It's 3.5%. And the stats coming out today show that seeking unemployment insurance has even gone down. Fewer people are needing the help. That's lower than it was in every single month under the last president. Wages are up. Household wealth is up, not only for middle-class Americans, for Latinos, for Black Americans, for minorities.
Details, details, details. The reality is they need to be pounding that home every single day, John Quell, because the bottom line is when you watch, if you look at how mainstream media, how media talks about this here, it's like, oh my God, the world is falling apart. Gas prices are sky high. They've dropped. Inflation is sky high. It's dropped. All these different things. And so what you hear from media outlets, urban Black morning shows and others is, oh my God, they've been awful. They've been terrible. But when you look at the reality, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, especially when you're coming after this press conference. You know, it's interesting now, of course, with social media having kind of taken over for a lot of people, and especially a lot of African Americans and a lot of younger ones have taken to social media for their news outlets. And so they're following the Breakfast Club or some of these other blogs, and that's where they're getting their news from. And it's a lot of misinformation that has been distributed in our community. And so it's important that the White House continue to do press conferences like these where we're able to get the real facts of what have been the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration.
You know what, Lauren? I saw some BS earlier. Piers Morgan was on the Breakfast Club, and he was talking about how, oh my God, Biden is just too old. He doesn't have any vigor. Kamala Harris has just been awful. She's done nothing for Biden. Then he says to Charlemagne and DJ Envy, you know, and she hasn't done anything for your people. And I'm sitting there going, anybody gonna respond to that lie? And that's what you see. You hear the lies being told. And then when people hear that, go, that's right, he's right, when it's a lie.
Yeah, I have no idea why the hell he was on the Breakfast Club. I have no idea why they would amplify him to the Black community. You know, everything now with media and the Black community, to the point just made, is the Shade Room and the Breakfast Club and Charlemagne the God. And I think that what is happening is a combination of what Reese said last week, a complete lack of strategy and investment by the Democratic Party into communications. And then some of it is just the fact that the driving force for making money on the internet is salacious, controversial content. So people who are on these shows are driven to move salacious and controversial content that is often inaccurate, delivered by people who don't know anything about public policy or politics. That doesn't seem to matter to anybody. And so as long as the thing is being clicked, they really don't care. So what's happening is a form of misinfo and disinfo at a really critical time in a really critical year. So instead of talking about how dangerous Donald Trump is, we're putting people like Piers Morgan on the Breakfast Club so he can run his mouth and say negative stuff about Kamala Harris. So you got to be kidding me. We've got Donald Trump quoting Adolf Hitler, but we're attacking Kamala Harris. So right there, that is completely ridiculous, right? So, but that's what everyone has decided. I shouldn't say everybody, but that's what many have decided to do for some reason. And it is absolutely dangerous. But a lot of that on the front end is the lack of strategy and investment by the Democratic Party, which has now reached a critical level. Been talking about it for years and years before Donald Trump even got on the scene in 2016. And now we have Donald Trump because of that. And I just don't know how to explain it. The Democratic Party has plenty of money. There's record amounts of fundraising coming in, records amount of millions of dollars coming in, and they still refuse to.
And nobody said, Charlemagne or Envy didn't say almost $7 billion to HBCUs, didn't say record enrollment for the third consecutive year for Affordable Care Act, which has dropped actually the number of Black people who are uninsured with health care. didn't say anything about the billions invested in black small businesses, didn't say anything along those lines. Those are undeniable facts. Again, the closing of the black and white wage gap. When you talk about under Biden-Harris, the lowest black unemployment rate ever, those are easy things to say, no, Piers, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Go back to England.
Well, it's easy for you, which is why he would never come on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Oh, no, he ain't coming on here. In fact, at the beginning of his people actually, maybe it was a couple months ago, his people reached out to me for one of his shows, and I said, sure, let's do it. I knew once they went back and told him I was booked. He was like, oh, hell no. So it was no surprise I was unbooked and haven't been called back. So yeah, Piers Morgan, he don't want this smoke. No question.
And you know, with all due respect to Leonard McKelvey and Rashawn Casey, no human being in the world should listen to either of them on anything political. That's why they go on those shows, because we're in a propaganda war right now.
Right.
And you know, Lauren just laid this out. I mean, so, you know, I can only agree with everything she said. And I would say that, you know, Biden-Harris is in trouble right now. On foreign policy, they're getting their asses handed to them because babies are being killed as we speak in occupied Palestine. And today, Bibi Netanyahu said that Israel must control the entire area from the river to the sea. Netanyahu is trolling the world. And guess what? Genocide Joe has now got a nickname hung on him because he is so stuck on stupid that he is about to lose actively engaged voters in these key states like Michigan, for example. And when he's faced with that, he has to now politicize this and politicize this money that was passed, because billions of dollars going to these Republican districts, these white nationalists are claiming credit for the very legislation they voted against, and he's still talking bipartisanship. See, he's not going to be banged up. He's going to be in Delaware or wherever he's going to be on his boat chilling with his sunglasses on, dark Brandon, and our people in harm's way are going to take the L. He has lost so many votes on the foreign policy because of his incorrect support of these fascist racists in Israel. So he can forget that. The least he can do on the domestic side is now ball up his fist and swing, but he's not going to do that. And as far as people researching, it's not research, it's searching. When people Google stuff, they searching. It ain't research, and they not even gonna do that. They would rather listen to somebody who named himself after the head of the Holy Roman Empire and got the nerve to call himself God, which is during my generation, my mother's generation, would have been considered blasphemy, and a bunch of damn entertainers. This is the state of the American people, and we are all in harm's way. And this is all very deliberate. And if we're gonna fight, we better figure out how to fight now. And I don't think the mummy is up to it, quite frankly. We might have to take this case to the people, because it ain't gonna be nobody.
I made it clear, and y'all understand. I'm not gonna let nobody come on this show or any show that I'm on, or even if I'm sitting on a panel or anywhere, or hell, if I'm sitting in the Uber, I'm not gonna let somebody lie. If you lie, I'm gonna check you right there. And because I